The peace station hung in silence above the dead moon of Zelver, its steel body glinting under the cold light of distant stars. Around it, empty space stretched like a frozen ocean. Inside the station, tension pulsed through the polished halls as delegates from across the galaxy gathered for what many believed was a doomed attempt at diplomacy. Marcus Hale stepped out of the docking bay with steady steps and calm eyes. He wore a sleek gray Terran diplomatic suit, its surface lined with light armor woven into the fabric, a quiet reminder that peace was never guaranteed. Behind him, no guards followed. No entourage. Just one human, walking into a chamber filled with beings who doubted he even belonged there. The council chamber was vast and circular. High walls curved inward, designed to make every sound echo with weight. Representatives from over 30 alien factions sat around the table. Tall, feathered Karani leaned beside Scaled, forearms in eye. Even the rare Varessan mist forms shimmered in containment fields, their eyes like shifting embers. All of them turned when Marcus entered. He walked calmly to the center. His voice carried clearly. Marcus Hale, Earth Federation, here to negotiate terms of peace with the Dravari Empire. Murmurs passed through the room. The words Terran and human drifted like whispers of doubt. Marcus had heard it before. Earth was new to the Galactic Union, still small, still underestimated. But he wasn't here to earn their approval. He was here to prevent a war. The chamber's far doors slid open with a deep hum. A chill moved through the air. General Vorek Thal entered like a storm in armor. 7 feet tall, wrapped in dark red war steel, the Dravari general carried the weight of hundreds of victories on his shoulders. His pale blue skin was marked with battle scars, and his glowing red eyes swept across the chamber like lasers. Behind him marched 2 silent guards in ceremonial helmets. The room quieted as he stepped forward and stopped across from Marcus. So Vorek said, his voice low and sharp. This is what Earth sends. 1 diplomat. No guards. No fleet. No spine. I only brought what I needed, Marcus replied calmly. My voice. Vorek's lips pulled back slightly, baring pointed teeth. A smile, maybe. Or a threat. You've come to delay the inevitable, the general said. I respect bravery. Even foolish bravery. But words cannot stop the storm. Storms pass, Marcus said. But words can shape what's left behind. The chamber watched in silence. The first verbal clash had begun, and already it was clear this would not be a negotiation of equals. It would be a test of wills. Vorek turned to the other delegates. Earth seeks peace, but peace is the reward of the strong. We do not fear war. Marcus kept his gaze fixed on him. Neither do we. But we understand its cost. That silenced a few murmurs. It was not the tone of weakness. It was the voice of someone who had seen war and had chosen another path, not because he was afraid, but because he understood. The session continued, filled with formalities and opening remarks from both sides. Vorek kept the tone combative. Marcus answered with patience. Every time the general tried to provoke, Marcus deflected with reason, never losing his calm. When the first day of talks ended, Vorek paused at the doorway and looked back. You speak well, human, but your voice will break when the fire comes. Marcus met his eyes. Then you'd better hope it never reaches your own house. Vorek stared a second longer, then left without another word. As the chamber emptied, Marcus stood alone at the center. He looked around slowly. He wasn't here to win their favor. He was here to win their respect. And he knew something none of them did yet. Vorek wasn't here for peace. He was here to buy time. Marcus walked back to his quarters in silence, his mind already turning, calculating, listening, preparing. This wasn't just diplomacy. This was war in slow motion. The second day of negotiations began with the same cold silence that had ended the first. The council chamber lights dimmed slightly, as they did every morning cycle aboard the peace station, mimicking sunrise on a dozen different worlds. But there was no warmth in this simulated dawn, only unease. Marcus Hale sat at the long crescent table, hands folded, eyes sharp. His calm expression masked the storm building beneath. He had slept little, reviewing every moment of yesterday's exchange with General Vorek. Every word, every pause, every subtle shift in posture. He knew the Dravari well enough to sense something wasn't right. Vorek entered later than usual, which was unlike him. His heavy steps echoed louder in the chamber today, as if he wanted everyone to hear them. He walked with the same confidence, but Marcus noticed a small difference. 2 new guards replaced the ones from the day before. Their armor looked identical, but their stance was tighter, more defensive. Marcus said nothing. Vorek took his seat, nodded once toward the delegates, then immediately launched into his statement. The Dravari Empire recognizes the peace proposal offered by the Terran Federation, he said with a voice smooth as glass, "and we are prepared to discuss terms. However, our fleets remain on alert, as all wise nations must." A few aliens around the chamber nodded, more out of habit than agreement. Marcus responded steadily. "Earth understands alertness, but a fleet on alert is different from a fleet on the move." Vorek's eyes flicked to him, a spark of challenge in the red glow. "You're implying something," Vorek said. "I'm observing," Marcus replied. "It's my job." Vorek didn't answer. He simply looked away, pretending indifference. But Marcus saw the tension in his jaw. After several hours of slow discussion, territory boundaries, trade permissions, orbital treaties, Marcus requested a recess. It was granted. The delegates filtered out into the open corridors of the peace station. Marcus walked alone toward the quiet end of the observation deck, where the stars shone unhindered through wide glass windows. He tapped a small silver band on his wrist. A soft chirp answered. "Rhea," he said, speaking to the Terran stealth drone orbiting near the station, "run a deep scan on Dravari fleet movements. Use back channels. Don't trigger their sensors." A gentle voice replied in his ear. "Already did. I thought you'd ask." 3 Dravari destroyers left orbit from Ventur 6 yesterday. Transponder codes say they're in drill exercises, but the route bends toward Earth's trade lanes. Unusual pattern. Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Send me the data." Full encryption. On its way. He ended the call. So, it had begun. Vorek was using the talks to stall. Just as Marcus feared. But something else nodded him. Why be so obvious? Why leave trails unless Vorek thought no one would dare stop him? Marcus returned to his private quarters, a clean, minimal space issued to all diplomats. He sat down and activated the wall screen. Data began flowing: fleet routes, transit logs, encrypted bursts. As he filtered through them, he saw what Vorek had hoped he wouldn't. A fleet wasn't just on alert. It was moving. Quietly. With pattern breaks only a tactician would notice. Small signals masked in routine drills. But to Marcus, it was like seeing a weapon drawn under a table. His mind raced. If he called it out too soon, he'd look paranoid. But if he waited too long... He leaned back, closing his eyes. A memory came to him 5 years earlier, when he still wore a Terran uniform. He had once led the defense of Epsilon Reach against a rogue pirate coalition. Back then, he had trusted hard data over hunches. It nearly cost him the outpost. Since that day, he'd learned to trust something else: instinct. This instinct told him Vorek wasn't bluffing. Later that evening, Marcus re-entered the council chamber. Vorek was already there, speaking casually with a delegate from the Ornithai Republic. He turned his head slightly as Marcus walked in, eyes narrowing. Marcus took his seat. "General, I hope your ships are enjoying their drills." Vorek's face didn't move, but his guards stiffened. "Terrans are paranoid," Vorek said. "It's a wonder you sleep at night." "We don't," Marcus said flatly. "Not when our people are under threat." The chamber had gone quiet again. Everyone felt the tension, but no one intervened. It was between the two of them now. "Let's proceed," Marcus said, adjusting his seat. "We've got peace to build." The talks resumed, but Marcus no longer listened the same way. He was analyzing everything now, every word, every gesture, every delay. This was no longer a negotiation. It was a countdown, and Marcus had already begun planning his next move. The third day of negotiations began under false calm. The peace station's artificial lights hummed low, casting soft shadows along the metallic walls. Outside the thick glass of the council chamber, stars drifted silently, cold and unaware. But inside, Marcus Hale knew war was no longer a threat. It was a plan in motion. He sat in the same seat as before, center, calm, and watched from all sides. But today, his mind was racing. Behind his composed expression, Marcus had already mapped out a silent battle. Words were just the surface. Beneath them, a dangerous game was unfolding. General Vorek Thal was late. Again. Marcus glanced at the chamber's entrance. The delay was intentional. A tactic. Vorek wanted control before he spoke. To make others wait. It worked on weaker diplomats. Not on Marcus. When the doors finally opened, Vorek entered with slower, deliberate steps. No words. Just a heavy presence. The kind a soldier brings when they already believe they've won. He sat across from Marcus and folded his clawed hands. "Shall we begin, human?" Marcus gave a polite nod. By all means. The day's topic was territory. A neutral zone between Dravari borders and Earth's expanding colonies. But Marcus barely listened to the words coming from the general. He was watching, calculating. He had seen Vorek's strategy unfold through coded fleet movements. And last night, that strategy had become a real threat. Hours earlier, Marcus had received a secure burst transmission from the Earth Federation. His contact in Orbital Defense Command, Admiral Rios, had confirmed it. 3 Dravari destroyers had changed course. Stealth mode. No transponder signals. Heading directly toward Earth's inner system. The drills were a lie. Marcus had expected it. But seeing it confirmed lit a fire in his chest. This was no bluff. Vorak was using the peace talks to stall while his fleet moved into position for a first strike. Now, Marcus had a choice. Expose Vorak publicly and risk panic among the delegates. Or wait, prepare, and counter the move quietly. He chose the second. As the meeting dragged on, Marcus tapped subtle commands into a thin pad in his lap. He sent a signal to a covert relay hidden in a Terran diplomatic drone outside the station. The message was short, encrypted, and direct. Engage Protocol Shade. Delay Dravari fleet. Do not fire unless fired upon. The drone would send the order back to Earth. Within hours, a cluster of Terran defense satellites would activate, ready to intercept the incoming destroyers non-lethally, but firmly. Marcus had just ordered Earth's first silent response in this quiet war. The chamber's dialogue continued without pause. Vorak spoke of borders and space lanes. But Marcus could see it in his eyes. He believed Marcus was still unaware. When the session broke for midday rest, Vorak approached him. No guards. Just the 2 of them near the far edge of the chamber, under a ring of low light. You seem distracted today, Vorak said, voice low. Nervous, perhaps? Marcus turned slowly. Focused. Vorak tilted his head. Is it the weight of peace or something heavier? Marcus studied him for a long second, then smiled faintly. You should enjoy this moment, General. Vorak frowned. Why is that? Because it's the last time you'll hold the upper hand. For a split second, Vorak's eyes narrowed. But the general said nothing. Just turned and walked away, his long cape trailing behind him like a dark banner. Back in his private quarters, Marcus pulled up the latest data feed. Earth's satellites had moved. The Dravari ships had been pinged. They were now hesitating, slowing down, not turning back, but unsure. Good. The next step would be harder. Marcus didn't just want to stop the attack. He wanted to expose Vorak's intentions without starting a galactic war. And to do that, he needed proof, something undeniable. He opened a second channel and called his trusted operative, embedded in the outer colony of Hauros. Marin, Marcus said when her face appeared on screen. Sir, she answered, eyes sharp and alert. I need the Dravari fleet's internal comm burst from the last 48 hours. Any crosstalk, officer chatter, or redirected navigation orders. That'll take some slicing. You have 12 hours. She nodded once. Understood. The screen went dark. Marcus leaned back in his chair, tired but steady. The room was quiet except for the low hum of life support. His hands rested on the armrests, but his mind never stopped moving. He had played chess before, but never like this. Tomorrow, the game would change. He would make sure of it. The 4th day on the peace station began under a heavy silence. Tension hung in the air like static before a storm. Everyone in the council chamber felt it, even if they didn't understand why. Something had shifted. The tone of the talks had changed. Marcus Hale stood at the wide observation window before the session started. His hands were clasped behind his back, his eyes scanning the endless black of space. He wasn't looking at the stars. He was watching the quiet void where the Dravari destroyers drifted toward Earth. They hadn't turned back, but they hadn't moved forward either. Earth's defense satellites were in position now, cloaked and armed, not to fire, but to warn. It was a clear message. We see you. But Marcus needed more than just a silent standoff. He needed to expose General Vorak's plan without starting a war. And today, he finally had the tool to do it. A light blinked on his wristband. A secured message came through. It was short and direct. Intercepted orders confirmed. Audio file attached. It was from Marin, his covert contact in Hauros. She had done her job. He tapped to open the file. Vorak's voice filled his earpiece. The general was giving a fleet captain direct instructions to advance toward Earth's defense zone and hold formation until further command. No drills. No training. It was enough. Marcus turned away from the window and walked calmly to the chamber. Delegates were already seated. Some looked tired. Some bored. But Vorak sat upright, hands folded, gaze locked on Marcus like a predator waiting for its prey to blink. Marcus took his seat across from him. The session began with routine protocol, but Marcus raised his hand before the first point was discussed. I request a private dialogue with General Vorak, Marcus said. Delegate to delegate. Whispers spread through the room. The Ornithai ambassador glanced at his aide. The Zenarii trade chief raised a brow. Private sessions were rare. Risky. But the chairperson gave a slow nod. Request granted. A side chamber opened behind the main hall, small, quiet, shielded from outside recording. Marcus entered first. Vorak followed. Once the door sealed, Marcus wasted no time. You've made a mistake, General. Vorak chuckled. I've made many. You'll have to be specific. Marcus pressed a button on his wristband. The intercepted audio file played clearly. Vorak's own voice, instructing a fleet captain to prepare for a direct advance. Vorak froze. Not for long, but just long enough for Marcus to know he was caught. You've intercepted classified communication, Vorak said, his tone lower now. Not mocking. Careful. Yes, Marcus said. Because I knew you weren't here for peace. Vorak stepped forward slowly. And what do you plan to do with it? Threaten me? The council won't believe you. They don't have to, Marcus replied. Because I already sent the file to every diplomatic channel on this station. In 30 seconds, every delegate in that chamber will hear your orders. Your plan is no longer a secret. Vorak's jaw tensed. You think this wins you something, human? Marcus looked him in the eyes. It wins Earth the time it needs to live. Vorak growled quietly. You dare challenge a superior race with words and whispers? No, Marcus said. With preparation. And with facts. He stepped closer now, face calm, voice steady. Your destroyers are being tracked by Earth's defense net. One more move forward, and their engines will shut down remotely. No attack. No blood. But your pride? That dies today. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then, slowly, Vorak turned away. He didn't leave, not yet, but his voice had changed. You were underestimated, he said. A rare mistake. Marcus nodded once. It won't be your last. When they returned to the chamber, whispers turned into silence. The delegates had received the file. Some looked stunned, others angry. The Ornithai representative stood. General Vorak, she said sharply, how do you explain this clear breach of trust? Vorak stood tall but didn't deny it. He said nothing. The chairperson ended the session early. There would be consequences, meetings behind closed doors, calls to homeworlds, and quiet decisions made far from the eyes of the people. But the damage had been done. Later, as Marcus walked down the quiet hall toward his quarters, a young Zenarii delegate caught up to him. Terran, she said softly, your kind may be new, but not naive. Marcus smiled faintly. Thank you. He returned to his room and closed the door. He didn't relax. Not yet. Vorak wouldn't forget this. And Marcus had no illusions that the danger had passed. But for the first time, he had pulled back the curtain. The galaxy now saw that humans would not bend. They would watch. They would prepare. And when pushed, they would push back. The peace station was quieter than usual. Not peaceful, just silent. The kind of silence that comes after an earthquake, when dust hangs in the air and no one knows what to say next. Word of General Vorak's secret fleet orders had spread fast. The intercepted audio had been forwarded to every delegation on the station. No one could pretend anymore. Marcus Hale walked through the upper corridor, his steps echoing off the smooth floor. Every few meters, he passed other diplomats. Some stared, some nodded with silent respect, and a few looked away. No one spoke. But the message was clear. The Terran had held the line. Marcus had done what few thought possible. He had stood alone against the most feared general in the galaxy and forced him to back down. In the council chamber, the seats were arranged the same way. The lights hummed the same. But everything felt different now. Vorak's presence didn't carry the same weight it had before. His voice, once full of certainty, had lost its edge. He sat across from Marcus, motionless. There was no mockery today. No speeches. Only cold silence. The chairperson spoke firmly. General Vorak, the council has reviewed the intercepted orders. Your fleet movements violate the peace station protocol and the terms of your diplomatic immunity. Vorak didn't deny it. He only said, the Dravari Empire regrets the misunderstanding. Marcus raised an eyebrow slightly but said nothing. He didn't need to push. The council was doing that for him now. Effective immediately, the chairperson continued, your fleet will withdraw from Earth's defense zone. You will sign a formal ceasefire agreement, and your future communications will be monitored by Galactic Union security. Vorak nodded once. Understood. The meeting ended shortly after. No one clapped. No one celebrated. But Marcus knew the battle was over. Earth had won, not with ships or weapons, but with patience, strategy, and proof. Later, Marcus sat alone in the station's small private garden dome. It was a quiet place, green walls, filtered sunlight, and a small fountain in the center. A rare corner of peace in a place built for tense diplomacy. He held a tablet in his hands, scanning the latest report from Earth. The Dravari fleet had stopped. No shots fired. No lives lost. The destroyers were turning back to their home system under escort. It was over. A soft sound broke his thoughts. He looked up to see the Ornithide delegate approaching, her long robes flowing like mist behind her. "You surprised us," she said simply. Marcus nodded. That was the point. She paused beside the fountain. Many believed Terrans were too new, too small to stand against the Dravari. "We are," Marcus said. "But we don't stand alone. We've learned from others. Watched. Listened. And we're not afraid of being underestimated." The delegate smiled faintly. "That will serve your people well." She walked away, her presence as gentle as her voice. Marcus leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. Not out of relief, but reflection. The mission had succeeded, but the fight wasn't truly over. Vorek had been forced to step down for now. But a man like that didn't forget humiliation. And Marcus knew Vorek hadn't been acting alone. Somewhere in the shadows, others had known about the attack plan. The galaxy was shifting, and Earth had just made its first move on the board. Back in his quarters, Marcus received a final transmission from Admiral Rios. "Good work. Earth owes you more than thanks. The fleet's holding the line, just in case. Let us know when it's time for the next move." He replied with a short message. "Not yet. Let them breathe. Let them wonder." Before he closed the channel, he paused, then added one more line. "And let them remember, this was the day Earth stood its ground." He turned off the console, sat back in the chair, and let out a slow breath. The stars outside the station still shimmered coldly, but something had changed. They weren't looking at Earth the same way anymore. They couldn't. The artificial dawn aboard the peace station cast a warm glow across its cold, polished walls. It was quiet, still, like the deep breath before a final decision. Most delegates had returned to their quarters. Some had already left, heading back to their homeworlds with reports of what had happened here. The peace talks had ended, but their outcome would echo through the galaxy for years. Marcus Hale stood alone in the main chamber. The great circular table was empty now. The flags of 30 worlds hung still above the seats. Where days ago there had been posturing, speeches, and tension, now there was only silence. He ran his fingers slowly along the edge of the table. The surface was smooth, untouched by the chaos that had unfolded here. But Marcus knew what had really happened. A war had been stopped without a single weapon fired. Not by luck, not by mercy, but by truth and by preparation. He tapped his wristband and opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Admiral Rios's face appeared, gray-haired and tired, but smiling faintly. "It's done," Marcus said simply. "I saw the report," Rios replied. "The Dravari fleet jumped out of Earth's territory 3 hours ago. No resistance, no threats. And Vorek, on his way back to Dravari Prime. They're spinning it as a diplomatic misunderstanding. But his reputation took a hit. Quiet, but deep." Marcus gave a slow nod. "He'll remember this." "Oh, he will," Rios agreed. "So will the rest of the galaxy." There was a pause. Then Rios asked the question everyone back home was thinking. "Did we win, Marcus?" Marcus looked away for a moment, then turned back. "We won the moment they realized they couldn't push us without a cost. That we don't need 1,000 ships to stand our ground. Just the will to defend what's ours, and the patience to play the long game." Rios nodded once. "Understood. We'll be watching. Preparing." Marcus closed the channel. He turned and left the chamber, walking slowly down the station's wide hallways. As he passed, a few alien delegates nodded to him. Not out of politeness, but out of respect. A silent acknowledgement that Earth, once overlooked and dismissed, had earned its place. He entered the observation dome, his favorite place on the station. The stars stretched far in every direction, endless and uncaring. But Marcus felt no fear. He didn't see emptiness out there. He saw possibilities. Behind him, the door slid open. It was Vorek. The Dravari general entered without guards, without armor, just the simple black uniform of his rank. He stood beside Marcus, silent for a moment. "Impressive," Vorek said at last. Marcus didn't turn. "You mean the data leak? Or the fact that your plan failed?" "Both," Vorek said calmly. "You played a dangerous game." "We didn't start it," Marcus replied. "We just refused to lose." Vorek looked out at the stars, his voice lower now. "I underestimated your kind. That won't happen again." You say that like it's a threat, Marcus said. Vorek smiled slightly, not mockingly, almost respectfully. It's a warning, he said. The galaxy is watching now. Be ready for what comes next. Marcus finally turned to him. We already are. No more words were exchanged. Vorek nodded once and left. Marcus remained. He stood there for a long time, watching the stars in silence. He thought of Earth, of home. A small blue world far from the center of power, yet stronger now than ever before. Not because of weapons, not because of numbers, but because of one simple truth. They had earned their place. Marcus opened a secure log file and recorded a final message to Earth's diplomatic archives. Operation completed. Ceasefire held. Diplomatic channels stable. The Dravari now know we are not to be ignored. This is only the beginning. Our strength is not in what we carry, but in what we stand for. Let history show. We came with peace, but not unprepared. He ended the recording. Then he walked out of the dome, out of the chamber, and down the corridor, one man, representing one planet, who had changed the course of a coming war. The station lights dimmed to evening mode behind him. The stars blinked on,